What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. And today we're looking ahead to the month of March, and I'm going to give you my top 5 fights for the month and why they are my top 5 fights for the month. And you know what? It's a big month. It was actually really hard to bring this down to 5 fights. I don't want to mention many other ones just because I'm like, well, like it'll be a top fucking 50 fights of the month if I do that every month. But I have 1 fight from Bellator, 4 fights from the UFC here, but there's a couple of Cage Warriors fights. There's a good few Cage Warriors fights as well. George Vucinic is coming back. He's definitely one I could have put in here, but he didn't make the list. There's some very good undercard fights in Bellator as well, but the 5 fights I've gone for here, unlike last month where we had a few undercard fights, we had, you know, a few of the up-and-comers, I suppose, and a few of the ones maybe coming back and chasing their way. What we have here is 5 main event fights, and they're really, really good because we have March 4th, March 10th, March 11th, March 18th, and March 25th. So this is not only, this is a bit unusual maybe, I think, because obviously we have 1 pay-per-view card, with 2 pay-per-view cards, in there. But maybe normally it'll be top-loaded in the month with maybe 2-3 fights from the pay-per-view, and then there might be a good fight night card. But this, good pay-per-view main events, good fight night main events, and a great month. Honestly, I don't know. I was expecting a great month in the world of mixed martial arts, like all months are. But I don't know that and it's so close, I didn't know that I expect it to be this good, but it is. There are some very, very, very good fights, very entertaining fights this month, and none better than the one I'm starting off with on March 4th, UFC 285. Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane. Bongamin. What a fight. I made my list at the end of last year. I said, what fight would you like to see more than any? And the lads over in Sherdog will tell you, we did the list here. I said Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane. Now, this was when Francis Ngannou was still with the UFC. This was before he left and everything there happened. This is the fight I've always wanted to see. And maybe not everyone agrees with me on that, and I understand 100% why. But now that we do have it, you can't deny that this isn't top of the line, fantastic mixed martial arts. There's such a level of intrigue here as well. I did a show about it the other day. If you are, how long ago? A couple of weeks ago now at this stage. Have a look at it on Sherdog. Myself and Ian O'Neill talked about the return of Jones, the return of McGregor. Obviously, that'll be later in the year, but the word that kept coming up for me was intrigue, because it's such an intriguing A, fight, but B, return. Because, like, where is Jon Jones now? I actually said that, and someone corrected me on it on that video about how Jon Jones had left Jackson Winklejohn, and that I thought he'd have a massive point to prove. Now, although he has left that gym, he's still training with Greg Jackson. I saw it and someone pointed it out to me, and I was like, oh, right, I didn't realise that. Obviously, you know, the whole fallout was with Mike Winklejohn, and I think the gym kind of parted ways and stuff, but I'm very interested to see how that actually plays out, because a lot of my analysis and my thought about it, and when I say analysis now, I mean maybe the mental side of it, was about like how Jon Jones would maybe want to stick it a little bit to his old team and like say, I can do it. And I thought that was a lot of the reason why he actually signed up to come back to fight in the UFC. Like, it seemed like he had no interest in fighting on the money they were offering him, and then all of a sudden, I don't think the money improved that much. Or maybe it did a bit. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. But then he seemed like he had a fire to come back and fight, and I thought that was it, the change in gyms. Now, maybe it still is it, maybe it's to shove it down to Winklejohn or something like that. But that time has kind of passed too, in terms of, like, if you're still hung up on that, it's a bit childish at this stage. You know, Jon Jones, okay, he can be a bit childish, but his thing now will be to prove he's still the best in the world. A lot of people thought it now. The best in the world for me is the guy right there, Demetrius Johnson, and he always will be until someone proves it differently. I thought Volkanovski might have, but he fell short there recently as well. But Jon Jones is right up there. He's one of the top 5 greatest fighters of all time, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, without a shadow of a doubt. And for him to come back and have a level of intrigue in a fight is weird, because you think about it, right? The guy is in his mid-30s or something now. Okay, he did start very early, but he's at heavyweight now, so that's, age is not a big determining factor, I suppose, in this. But there's an intrigue to see, that, like, does he still have it? He went out in his last 2 fights, and then you're going to try and Anthony Smith fight as well. Was it the fight before that, or was it a couple more? I'm not sure, but look it up on Sherdog.com. And not that he laid an egg, but he wasn't great, you know. And I think as well, the way Jon Jones fought, I think a lot of that was before the new judging criteria came in. Now he's fighting under the current judging criteria. I don't think his style will be as effective. So is he going to have to change things up? So there's not only the level of intrigue that can he look the same, because if he looks the same, I don't think he'll be good enough. He'll have to look even better than he did before. And that to me is massive. That is a massive thing to look at here and to see if that's even possible for Jon Jones. And then you look at the side of it from Ciryl Gane. He fell at the first hurdle that he met with world-class opposition in terms of, well, no, maybe that's unfair. He beat some good guys before that, but you know what I mean. He got to a title shot to prove he was the best in the world, and he lost. Now, it was a close fight. Some think he won. I remember watching it live. I thought he got. When I watched the rewatch, I was like, oh, I'm not, you know what? I'm not too sure about that. It was one of those fights, so it's not as if he laid an egg or anything like that either. But it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with this, because in that fight, Ngannou obviously, used a lot of wrestling and won the fight in that way against him. Gane, known as a striker, he want to come on, he'll want to strike with everyone. But will he be thinking, okay, Jon Jones is probably the best wrestler I've faced, best high-level wrestler anyway I've faced. Will he be trying to come out and wrestle me? But we all know about Jones. He usually comes out and tries to take guys apart at what they're good at. So will he even want to wrestle with Gane? Who knows? Will he want to strike? Will he want to prove that he's a better striker than the best striker in the heavyweight division in the UFC? Intrigue. That's the word again. The level of intrigue is huge in this one. And it's all based around the fight. Like, this show, and hopefully I'll continue it going for the next few months anyway. We'll see how it goes. But I think I kind of wanted it to be less about the tactical analysis and more about the reasons why I'm kind of excited for these fights. But for this one, it's the tactical analysis that makes me so intrigued. I'll say it again. But it's the storyline as well. It's Jon Jones coming back. It's Gane trying to prove he is the best in the world. It's Gane maybe becoming a star if he beats Jon Jones. It just has everything. This fight has absolutely everything. It's quality, story, analysis, intrigue, unsurety. Is that even a word? I'm not sure. Not sure about unsurety, but it's brilliant. I absolutely can't wait for it. And we'll analyse it more as the fight comes, and then Sheehan and Duffy, I'm sure, will analyse it, and I'll be doing it, and everyone will be doing it. This is a different sort of fight. This is the sort of fight that we're going to be talking about. Look, like Volkanovski against Makhachev, it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we were still talking about it. That's what this fight is going to be. It's going to be one of those fights. It's not just the day of the fight. It's not just the day after the fight. It's not just, oh, what a great fight that was, and we'll move on. This is a long-term fight, because, like, Jon Jones wins, and we're talking about, oh my God, what's the future like for Jon Jones? Jon Jones loses, and we're talking about, oh my God, what's the future like for Jon Jones? For Gane, we know, okay, he'll go on and he'll fight the next guy, and whatever. If he loses, he'll fight his way back. Absolutely grand. I'm a big fan of Ciryl Gane. I think he's a brilliant fighter, but Jon Jones is the star here. Let's be honest. We all know that, and the talk afterwards will be about Jon Jones. And I love the fights, number one, but we all love a bit of intrigue. I'll say it again. I'll say that word, #intrigue. We all love a bit of that. Like, it's like, where is this going to go? Where are these guys going to land? Where is one of the greatest fighters and the greatest characters and one of the most interesting people, whether you hate him or love him? And now, I said a lot of good things here about Jon Jones. There's a lot of bad things to say about Jon Jones as well. And if your prerogative is that you don't even want to watch Jon Jones because of all those things, same goes for McGregor, same goes for many people. I have no problem with that at all, but I'm just saying it here from my point of view, but also from, like, possibly the point of view of people who are getting excited for the fights. We talk a lot about different issues and stuff on this show and many of my other shows and things, but for this specific one, it is that, and this, it's hard not to be excited by this for all of that. Like, my general feeling is that Jon Jones is going to be bouncing off the canvas. That's my feeling here. Jon Jones is going to be at it. Is it going to be enough? I'm honestly not sure. I'm honestly not sure if it's going to be even enough to beat Ciryl Gane, but I think it'll be a mesmeric fight. I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see that one. I absolutely cannot wait to see it. The next fight is at Bellator, number 2. And it is the main event for the lightweight title, and it's Usman Nurmagomedov versus Benson Henderson, Bellator 292 on March 10th. And the reason I put this in here, I don't think, like, from the tactical point of view or anything like that, no, when I say that, I don't think it's going to be a great fight, right? That's the way I'll put it there. I don't think it's going to be, like some of the other fights here, like maybe all of the other fights here, that it could turn into a classic. I don't think so in this, right? It'll be one of two things. It'll either be a close, good fight. You know, as I said, I don't think it'll be a classic. That doesn't mean I don't think it'll be a good fight. I don't think it'll be a good fight, if I want to put it that, like, my opinion on it, but I'm not assured of that. But what I'm intrigued, you need to stop using the word intrigue. What I want to see more from this fight is how Usman Nurmagomedov deals with Benson Henderson, because I've covered a lot of Benson Henderson over the last year or so. He fought here in Ireland against Petr in the main event. I interviewed him. I watched a lot of his fights coming up to that. And the one thing you look at with Benson Henderson is that, and I've happened a couple of times, but you go with me here, it's very hard to look good against Benson Henderson. And you even look like, say, like a guy like Queally, but other guys he's fought as well, who are good, well-rounded fighters. He's just like more well-rounded than everyone. And he makes it so, if you're very good at jiu-jitsu, he's well-rounded enough to stop your jiu-jitsu. If you're a very good striker, he's well-rounded enough to kind of play with you, striking, to make it into an even matchup, and same with wrestling and same everywhere. He's one of those guys, right? He's one of those guys who's just so good and so well-rounded. It's very, very difficult, to beat him, but even if you do beat him, you're going to probably not look great. And look, another one of those guys like that was, for different reasons now, was Yoel Romero, and we saw with Izzy and others as well, and it was hard to look good against him. You just had to kind of get the job done, and I feel like that's the case with Benson Henderson. Now, what I'm interested in with this is, can Usman Nurmagomedov beat Benson Henderson and look good doing it? Like, I do think he'll win, and I don't think the odds are up yet or anything, but I think he'll be a good, like, minus 400, minus 500 favourite to beat Benson Henderson. And I fully expect it to be like a 5-round jabbing match, maybe a couple of takedowns, but, you know, Benson landing a couple of shots, but not landing enough power, not getting any takedowns, not overwhelming Nurmagomedov in any way. I think he won't fight at a high enough of a pace to test Nurmagomedov's cardio or anything like that. I just think it'll be one of those fights. Like, there's no danger here for me in Nurmagomedov losing, if you want to put it that way. Now, anything can happen in MMA. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe come out with a cut, or anything could happen. But what I want to see here is, if we all think of Usman Nurmagomedov, right, as one of the top lightweights in the world. I don't think anyone listening to this would disagree with that. Maybe you could say, you know, there's one lad in the UFC better than, maybe you could say 2, maybe you could say 10, but I don't think you could say 15. I don't think you could say 20, right? Or not even in the UFC, but in the world. So he is one of them. Can he prove he's one of the top 10? Can he prove he's one of the top 5 or one of the very, very best by destroying Benson Henderson? That's what I want to see. And it's not that I want to see it, but that's what I'm tuning in to see in this one. That's why I'm excited for this one. Usman Nurmagomedov has had some tough fights against tough people and good people, and he's made them, you know, not necessarily made them look easy, the last fight especially. But if he can go in there against Benson Henderson and make it look easy, that says a lot. Now, Benson, okay, he's at the latter half of his career and all that. We all know that. But still in all, Benson, he showed it in that last fight against Queally. He's a guy who just has it all in terms of, you know, being able to hang in there with everyone. If he can't hang in there with Usman Nurmagomedov, that says a lot more about, I think, Usman Nurmagomedov than it does about Benson Henderson. And if he can say that, if he can make that point, if he can, you know, set that yardstick, I think we start talking about Usman Nurmagomedov a little bit differently. And maybe everyone won't, but I think a lot of people analysing him, a lot of people talking about him will. A lot, like, you'll see some of it. Let's say if he was to go out and bulldoze him in 2 rounds, people say, Benson Henderson's older, you know, it's the first night in the tournament and all of this. But I won't, and I think a lot of people in the know won't either. And it's massive. Because as well, Benson Henderson would be mad up for this. This is Benson Henderson's last opportunity. When I spoke to him there a couple of months ago, he was kind of saying, look, my wife is the one it's time to live her dream now. She's going to be the one who is fighting, and I think he said at the time 3 fights left. You know, after that, good luck, I'm gone. And that kind of puts him in the position here where this could be his last fight. You know, if he loses this, what's the point of having kind of one more if you're not fighting towards the title? So it's a massive opportunity for Benson Henderson, but for Usman and Nurmagomedov to take it to the next level, I think is the opportunity that I'm kind of most intrigued by here. The next fight is on the next night, and it is Petr against Merab Dvalishvili, March 11th at the UFC Fight Night. Gane versus Dvalishvili. Obviously, all of these, as I said, are main events. This is a fascinating fight, right? And I applaud both of these guys for taking this fight, because this is the sort of fight that you think, oh, Jesus, this is a great fight for either of these lads to take. You know, Dvalishvili on the way up, but his teammate is the champion and he doesn't want to fight him. So, you know, how that's going to go. You have to fight someone. And then Gane lost to the same guy a couple of times, and, you know, he has to fight his way back. But is Dvalishvili the best guy, I suppose, to fight his way back against? Very, very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. I look at it this way, and the reason I'm excited for it is because I think a lot of people, I know over in Severe May, we do the most disappointing fighter of the year, and I'm pretty sure Petr won it. And I think, look, for most people, he probably would have as well, even though he didn't necessarily perform badly or anything in any of the fights. But Petr was a guy who, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we were all talking about who's the number one pound for pound. Is it Islam? Is it maybe Leon? Is it Volkanovski? You know, there's other people. Gane was one of the ones right up there. How long ago? A year ago? He was one of the guys that I was kind of thinking, look, he wins another couple of fights and he's in that mix, or maybe he was already in that mix. Yet now he's fighting on a Fight Night card against Merab Dvalishvili, coming off of a few losses. That is a very interesting place to see someone like Gane. Like, here's the question: like, was the analysis wrong all the time on Gane, and was he not as good? Did he just come up against, you know, a bad matchup for him, like Mikey Brown and Uriah Faber back in the day, something like that? He has his number, and even though we all know what happened in the first one is a bit weird. Or is he actually just really good, got a bit unlucky, he'll destroy Dvalishvili here, and he'll carry back on, get towards the title shot, win the title again, maybe off Aljo, maybe off someone else, and all will be good? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I would say I think a lot of people were right about him. He is a great fighter and he just got unlucky. But we don't know. And do you know what? We'll find out here, because Dvalishvili will put it on him. Like, I personally don't rate Dvalishvili as highly as other people. I think he is very good wrestler. You go out there and beat Jose Aldo, you deserve respect. One of the most boring fights we've ever seen, but still, you do deserve the respect for doing that. And he's all the wins he's had. Obviously, a very, very good takedown artist. I was going to say wrestler there, but if you've 30 takedowns in a fight, that you're not a good wrestler. Like, you're a good takedown artist, but you can't hold anyone there. You can't get any control there. You're not getting any. And okay, I don't want to get into the analysis of it much here, but I think if Gane loses to Dvalishvili, it's a real bad sign, because, you know, he fought Nurmagomedov a couple of times. Lost the first time, obviously came back and beat him the second time, and I think Nurmagomedov is a far superior wrestler to Dvalishvili, actually similar in some ways in terms of his takedowns. And if Gane loses to Dvalishvili, I think he's regressed from that, and that was before he even came to the UFC, and that is not a good sign. So this, to me, this fight, it all hinges on that wrestling with Dvalishvili. It always does, because that's what he has. He is a wrestler, and if he can't wrestle you, there's a fly in front of me. If you can't wrestle you, you're going to win the fight more than likely, especially Gane when you're that good of a striker. And what else hinges on this is like the level of Gane's career going forward. It really does. It really does. Now, even if he loses, he can come back 100%, but we'll be recalibrating where Gane is in his career if he loses this fight. So a massive fight on March 11th. Massive fight. March 18th. UFC 286, Kamaru Usman trying to regain his title from the champ Leon Edwards over in London. And this is This is a massive rematch. The third fight as well between them, you nearly forget they had the first one. This one and McGregor and Poirier, I always forget how many fights they've had, just because one of them was far before. And what was the other one? Frankie Edgar, Graham Maynard as well. That was another one, yeah. But this fight, you know, there are a few factors here that I'm really interested to see how they play out. Okay. The first and most important factor for me is Usman and his confidence coming in here. Will it be shook? Will his confidence be shook by the knockout? How could it not be? How could it not be shook by a big knockout? Will he fight differently because of that? Will that be a good thing or a bad thing? Those are the questions we need to be asking here, right? And then the other side of it for Edwards, will that have helped his confidence? Will he be more inclined to maybe throw those big shots? Whereas before he was fighting more of a point fighting kind of game, I suppose, against a lot of people winning decisions and things like that. Although doing it very, very well. How will that affect him? And now I'm not a big one for talking about all that because that's something you can't really analyse because we don't know if they're, you know, if they're confident, if they're mentally affected by things, how they're feeling in camp coming into it. We don't know that. It's pure and utter speculation. What we can do is we can look at the other fights. We can talk about how they match up against some guys, how we think it'll work and all, but we don't know how mentally they're feeling, you know? One of them someone could have banged into the back of their car and they might have been able to train for a couple of days or something. We don't know those things, like, you know? One of them might have their bike stolen. They arrived late for training and their training conditioning was gone. They missed a day of it and then they were all set back for the week. You know, we don't know. We don't know. What we do know, though, is that Usman got knocked out and Edwards got the knockout. And that will affect both of them. That will affect them. Some people, it affects them differently. Like some people go out and they win a knockout and they win by knockout and they're never the same again. I've reached the mountaintop. That's it. Don't train as hard. Don't put in as much effort. Some people get knocked out and they're like, I'm never going to let that happen again, and they become a better fighter. And then the opposite happens. Some people, they prove that they are one of the best fighters in the world, like Edwards did, and it takes them to that next level. Now I'm here. Now I can relax into it. Now I can destroy, lads. You know, and some people get knocked out by Usman, they're never the same again. What way is it going to be? What way is this fight going to work out? I don't know. How big is the crowd going to play into it as well? Like, Edwards is from Birmingham, so he's not a London guy, but I'm sure he'll have a massive home country advantage here, and they will be massively behind him. How is that all going to play into it? Look, we know the fight. There's actually very little intrigue, I think, in the technical side of this fight, because we know it from the first fight. We saw it. It worked out almost exactly as a fight like we thought coming in. The only difference was the early wrestling success of Edwards, and maybe that was kind of a thing that shocked Usman. He was able to change that around very, very quickly. But Usman just showed throughout that fight that he's just a slightly better fighter than Kamaru Usman. Than Leon Edwards. Usman was able to show he was a slightly better fighter. Until he got knocked spark out. You know? Until he got absolutely knocked spark out. It's very intriguing. It's very intriguing to see what's going to happen this time. Like, if here's my thought on it, right? And to get into the analysis again, but if Usman can come out and fight the way he did in the first fight, the exact same way, I think he'll win. I think he'll win this. I don't think Edwards will catch him again, right? But if he, right, so there's two parts of that. If he doesn't, I think Edwards will definitely beat him, and probably beat him maybe over a decision. Maybe, you know, I think it will be a decision. I really do think someone's going to win this fight by decision. That would be my call. But there's another thing that can happen too, right? So, Usman fights to his best and wins. Usman fights a little bit down from his best and loses. But what if Usman fights to his best and Edwards picks up a level and fights even better than he did in the first fight? Now, take away the knockout and all that. That's fight of the year candidate there. That's close decision there. You know, and that's what I hope happens, because that's what we all want to see as MMA fans. And you know what? I think that could happen. I think that could happen. And if it does, God, we're in for an absolute barn burner. So we look forward to that one. The last fight, fifth fight, it is March 25th. It is the UFC main event, and it's Marlon Chito Vera versus Cory Sandhagen in the 135-pound division. Two 135-pound Fight Night headliners here, and by God, they're good ones. Look, this fight, do you know what? There isn't much that needs to be said about this fight. Vera is the type of guy who recently has been fighting almost the exact opposite of Cory Sandhagen, right? Where Cory Sandhagen is touch you, hit you hard. Touch you, hit you hard. And that, what I just said there was the first 30 seconds of the round. That keeps going on for the first 5 minutes. Whereas for Vera, he's like, touch you, hit you hard. And that's the whole round, if you get me, right? And it's worked for him, because when you hit someone hard, as we know, we talked about the scoring criteria earlier on, you get scored on the big hard shots, not the touch you shots, you know? And that's been working for Vera. But I'll be interested to see against someone like Sandhagen, who hits very hard when he wants to, who throws those big flying, who makes it very difficult for you to hit him as well, and has unbelievable cardio, so that he can do it for not only 4.5 minutes, he can do it for 5 minutes, not leave himself vulnerable in the last minute. Interesting. Big part of this is 5 rounds. Can he I said he's very good cardio, but can he do that for 5 rounds, as Vera kind of I talked about Yoel Romero earlier on, conserves his cardio. I think Vera does that very, very, very well. He fights at a very even pace, where he can fight at that pace for the whole fight. I think to beat someone with his ability who fights at that pace, you have to fight at a higher pace. And you're fighting at a higher pace, you have to do that for maybe the whole fight. And that's could be an issue for Sandhagen. As I said, though, even though I think he has very, very, very good cardio. But the prize here almost is that Gane versus Dvalishvili is March 11th, and 2 weeks later you have Vera versus Sandhagen. And obviously, you know, is Aljamain going to fight Henry? What's going to happen? There's almost a little tournament on here to see who can have the best performance, who can have the best win, who can put themselves in line. And to put those two main events together 2 weeks apart, I think kind of forces that down. I think they probably would have been a week apart only for, you know, the London card, and that they probably would have liked to have that later in March, or maybe in April. But it was just the way it worked out. And I think I don't think often the UFC do things on purpose in terms of their matchmaking a lot, but I do think this one was one of those. And it's exciting to see that, because a lot of people say bantamweight is the best division in the world, and you know what, I wouldn't totally disagree with them. It's right up there. And to have 4 of the top bantamweights in the world fighting and no title be on the line, that means a lot. You know, that means a lot in terms of who will be the next guy, who will be the one to take over. And will it be Vera? Will it be Sandhagen? Will it be Jan? Will it be Dvalishvili? We'll find out. We will find out. All right, I'll leave it there. So my 5 fights for the month to look forward to. Before I go into that, let me know in the comment section below, outside of these, which one are you most looking forward to? Okay, you can give me one of these, which one of these, and in which other fight you're most looking forward to. So I want 2 fights. I want 2 fights. Let me know which fights you're most looking forward to. So my 5 fights: Jones versus Gane, Nurmagomedov versus Henderson, Dvalishvili versus Gane, Edwards versus Usman, and Vera versus Sandhagen. God almighty, March is going to be some month. It's going to be some month of fun, and I can't wait. Stay tuned here to Sherdog.com for all of the coverage, all of the events, all the previews, all of the reviews, all of the betting shows, and everything like that for the month of March. It's going to be a fun one. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com. Let's see you all next time.